What was sprinkled on the mercy seat on the Day of Atonement? The blood of the Lamb. Do you see the connection? Your atoning sacrifice that saves you from God's wrath, which He doesn't like sin, that has saved you. Propitiation. God Himself to save us from Himself. Think about it. And how did He do that? He gave His own Son. Love mixed with wrath. He hates sin, but He loves us so much that to appease His hatred of sin, He offers His own Son. Love triumphs wrath. Isn't that a beautiful thought? You see why these verses change people's lives? Oh, so many. I forgot to throw that one up. There you go. Propitiation. You can just use the word mercy seat. Propitiation. Mercy seat. I can tell the story about the tax collector and the publican, but I won't do that. I need to go on. I got too much stuff in my notes today. Now, another story. Another man that was absolutely affected by Romans. I've already referred to his name. We sang his hymn this morning. William Cooper. William Cooper. What a story. He was an 18th century English poet who authored some of our best beloved hymns. He had a miserable childhood. His mother died when he was only 6 years old. And he was immediately bundled off to a boarding school where, being very small and of sensitive nature, he was mercilessly badgered, bullied, and beaten by the older boys. Cooper struggled through this time and through his later years as a law student. But terrors overwhelmed him, and on one or more occasions his mind seemed to fail. Twice he tried to commit suicide. At last, in the year 1756, the 25-year-old Cooper was committed to a private asylum under the care of a man whose name was Dr. Cotton. 200 years ago, being confined to an asylum often meant receiving the most terrible treatment. But Cooper's doctor was a devout old gentleman, and he treated the distraught poet in a way that brought him out of his depression, introduced him to salvation through the work of Christ. Cooper had been much troubled by his sin, often crying out, my sin, oh, for some fountain open for my cleansing. But he had known of no such fountain. Now, under the care of this gentle Christian doctor, he discovered the only fountain that ever washed away one's sin. And guess what hymn he wrote? I'm shortening the story, but the hymn is the hymn we sang this morning about his own experience. There is a fountain filled with what? Blood, drawn from Emmanuel's veins, and sinners plunged beneath that flood lose all their guilty stains. It changed his life, and he wrote a story about it in a hymn. We can go on. The word forbearance, a passing over, a letting go. I could spend the whole sermon just on that text there. The forbearance of God that He passed over sins previously committed. His forbearance, His letting go, His not getting church lady about it. You know, hey, let it go. God did it, let it go. Justice will come. Oh yes. But God let past sins go because someday He knew His Son would be offered and taken care of it. A demonstration, another word in that text. Pointing out or indicating proof. How did He demonstrate it? He demonstrated His love by what? His righteousness at the present time so that He would be, and then you come to this other word, the just and the justifier. Oh, I could spend so much time, I haven't got the time. The just and the justifier. To show to be righteous and to declare righteous. He was the just and the justifier, all in the same word and all in the same character. God has done so much for us. One more story. Okay, now tell this story. Notice I could spend a whole lot of time on theology, justification, sanctification, you know, imputed, imparted, and everything. But I want to tell you stories that actually break home the point. How many of you remember the Rosenberg trial in 1951? They were accused of spying. They turned all kinds of secrets over to the Soviet Union. And secrets that actually involved a lot of people losing their lives. And so they were tried for spying. Their lawyer's summation at the end of a long and bitter trial said, "Your Honor, what my clients asked for is justice." Judge Kaufman replied, "The court has given you what you asked for, justice. What you really want is mercy, but that is something the court has no right to give. You got justice." Folks, if we all got justice for what we have done wrong, guess what? Is there anybody in here that can say, "Lord, I'm saved"? If you got your justice, but the just and the justifier comes in, and when you offer yourself and say, "Lord, forgive me my sins," what does the just and the justifier do? You are safe to say, in God's eyes, you are just, because the justifier has made you that way. What a wonderful message. And it has changed people's lives. By the way, Paul has to add, is there any boasting then? Because you are saved, can anybody boast? Not for a minute. And then Paul is remembering, he's speaking to his people, and as he speaks to his people and he says all these kinds of proofs and tries to point it out, in the back of their mind is still this thing about the Ten Commandments, the law. And they're still thinking about that. So Paul addresses it. What's he say in verse 31? Does all this, meaning you are saved only by the righteousness through Christ, of no act of your own, does that then nullify the law? Does that do away with it? What does he say? No. What it does, and the Greek word means it stands it up. It establishes the law. Right? It establishes the law in its place, as Paul has explained what the purpose of the law is for.